We'll look at several different types of wire today. At this point, I would like to say that I'm cutting up things that are e-waste, but in reality, recycling your electronic waste involves a fair amount of salvage. And some of the household e-waste that we have is actually of value to someone else. So to cut a lot of wires off of old transformers, surge protectors, and extension cords is probably not the best idea, but for this experiment, I'm considering it okay. What might be reasonable is if you were to use something like scrap Christmas lights and phone cords, because, well, and this is just in my own personal opinion, it seems to me that this kind of waste would be less useful to someone else than something like an old transformer. Some time ago, I stripped down some wire to see what was inside. I found this beautiful twisted copper wire. I was trying to think of what we could do with copper wire that comes from things like phone cords and cables. So my plan is to extract the copper from some wire so that I can have something to work with. Then I can try to figure out some uses for the material. Here I am trying to figure out how to get some copper cabling. I am trying to make a bicycle chain for a gear set that I made some time ago, and the gears look like this. They don't quite mesh properly. I think that they would work if I put a crank on one or turned it with a motor, but I had an idea to take it and evolve something that looks like the gears on a bicycle and make a chain that resembles a bicycle chain. I would then be able to separate them and transmit the motion through the bicycle chain. So to do that, I'm looking for some wire to make a cable. Some time ago, I stripped some electrical wire down and found this. I thought that we could add copper spacers so that it would enable the chain to move the gears more easily. I'm looking at a bunch of wires that I got from various places. Some of these I pulled out of the e-waste bin. Some of them I found in my old wire stash. So I started by cutting off all of the power supplies, power adapters from the wire itself, because I am less interested right now in the power adapters. Before I go on, I should say you probably want to be very careful that the power supplies, power adapters that you are, and mice that you are cutting the wires off of are really e-waste before you start, because you wouldn't want to accidentally cut the adapter for your laptop. Okay. So here we are, stripped off the ends of the phone cord wire, and we have two very thin wires remaining. Incidentally, I do have a use for the stripped off pieces of the phone cord wire. If they remain whole, that is, if you don't damage the outside and you have somewhat of a reasonable cylinder, you can use it to cover your felting needles so that they are not quite as dangerous to carry around. I've already started to strip down some phone cord wire, but then I immediately realized that I wouldn't be able to use it. Not for what I want to do right now, which is to make a bulky copper bundle and twist it so that I'll be able to weave it. Inside there are two smaller wires with teeny tiny bits of copper inside. So again, it's of limited uses for the copper the way I want to use it, but these really pretty red and green wires could be useful for something else. Let's look at some network wire. This is another type of wire. It looks like network wire. Inside the cable there are 8 smaller wires. This has the same issue as the phone cord wire does. there are too many smaller shielded wires inside. Still, lots of pretty colors and could be useful for something else. Mouse wire. So I'm calling it mouse wire because it came off of a mouse, but the reality is that the wire that's used to connect the mouse to the computer will depend on the connector at the other end of the computer. So that connector was a PS2 connector, which has 6 pins at the end. So normally you would expect that there would be 6 wires inside, but there are only 4. And I took a look up on good old Wikipedia, and that's because it seems that there are 2 pins that are not normally used. So that explains it. But anyway, for our purposes, for crafting, there are 4 pretty wires, 1 black, 1 red, 1 green, 1 white. There is some sort of reflective material outside, and surrounding that is a layer of copper fibers. So we could potentially use those copper fibers, but for right now it looks like a lot of work. Here is a big bundle of Christmas lights wire. Let's take a look at it. It's a twisted wire. There are short wire pieces connecting the light bulbs and a longer wire for the electricity return. This wire could have some uses. The longer extension cord wire. This is really good wire to work with, and the fact that it's an extension cord will ensure that there are several thin copper wires inside, enough to make a bulky cable. Also, there is no inner shielded wire, only copper wires, so there's just one level to strip. There are 2 wires to an extension, each one to take electricity in a different direction, and so what you do is you strip them apart, and then each one can be handled as a single wire. I hope you've had as much fun as I have looking at wires from a purely crafting perspective. I had to do a lot of thinking during the various video clips about how much information about the original purpose of the wire that we needed to keep. Hopefully it's enough, but not too much.